Motivation from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Motivate redirects here for the bike sharing company. See Motivate company. For other uses, see motivation, disambiguation. Motivation is the experience of desire or a aversion. You want something or want to avoid or escape something. As such, motivation has both an objective side, a goal or thing you aspire to, and an internal or subjective aspect. It is you that wants the thing or wants it to go away. At minimum, motivation requires the biological substrate for physical sensations of pleasure and pain. Animals can thus want or disdain specific objects based on sense, perception, and experience. But motivation does not stop there. The capacity to form concepts and to reason allows humans can go beyond this minimum state with a much greater possible range of desires and aversions. This much greater range is supported by the ability to choose one's own goals and values combined with time horizons for value achievement that can encompass years, decades, or longer, and the ability to re-experience past events. Some models treat as important the distinction between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, and motivation is an important topic in work, organizational psychology, administrative organization and management, as well as education. The definition of motivation as experienced desires and aversions highlights the association of motivation with emotion. Emotions are automatic appraisals based on subconsciously stored values and beliefs about the object. To the extent that distinct emotions relate to specific subconscious appraisals, e.g., anger, injustice, guilt, violation of a moral standard, sadness, loss of a value, pride, the achievement of a moral ideal, love, valuing an object or person, joy, the attachment of an important value, envy, wanting the attainments of another, admiration, valuing the attainments of another, etc. Motivation theory involves specifying content theories, values that people find motivating, along with mechanisms by which they might attain these values: mastery, setting challenging goals, attending to required tasks, persistence, etc. Changing motivation, either one's own or that of others, e.g., employees, is another focus of motivation research. For instance, altering how you choose to act on your emotions, or reprogramming them by modifying one's beliefs and values. Psychological theories. Motivation can be conceived of as a cycle in which thoughts influence behaviors, drive performance, affects thoughts, and the cycle begins again. Each stage of the cycle is composed of many dimensions, including attitudes, beliefs, intentions, effort, and withdrawal, which can all affect the motivation that an individual experiences. Most psychological theories hold that motivation exists purely within the individual, but socio-cultural theories express motivation as an outcome of participation in actions and activities within the cultural context of social groups. Content theories. Theories articulating the content of motivation, what kinds of things people find motivating, are among the earliest theories in the history of motivation research, because content theories focus on which categories of goal, needs, motivation, people, and content theories are related to need theories. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Content theory of human motivation includes both Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Herzberg's two-factor theory. Maslow's theory is one of the most widely discussed theories of motivation. Abraham Maslow believed that man is inherently good and argued that individuals possess a constantly growing inner drive that has great potential. The needs hierarchy system devised by Maslow 1954 is a commonly used scheme for classifying human motives. The American motivation psychologist Abraham H. Maslow developed a hierarchy of needs consisting of five hierarchic classes. According to Maslow, people are motivated by unsatisfying needs. The needs listed from basic, lowest, earliest to most complex, high, latest are as follows: psychology, hunger, thirst, sleep, etc. Safety, security, shelter, health. Social, love, friendship. Self-esteem, recognition, achievement. Self-actualization, achievement of full potential. The basic requirements build upon the first step in the pyramid psychology. If there are deficits on this level, all behavior will be oriented to satisfy this deficiency. Essentially, if you have not slept or eaten adequately, you won't be interested in your self-esteem desires. Subsequently, we have the second level, which awakens a need for security. After securing those two levels, the motive shift to the social sphere. The third level, psychological requirements, comprise the fourth level, while the top of the hierarchy consists of self-realization and self-actualization. Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory can be summarized as follows. Human beings have wants and desires which, when unsatisfied, may influence behavior. Differing levels of importance to human life are reflected in a hierarchical structure of needs. Needs at higher levels in the hierarchy are held in abeyance until lower levels needs are at least minimally satisfied. Needs at higher levels of the hierarchy are associated with individuality, humanness, and psychological health. Sex, hedonism, and evolution. One of the first influential figures to discuss the topic of hedonism was Socrates, and he did so around 470 through 399 BC in ancient Greece. Hedonism, as Socrates described it, is the motivation wherein a person will behave in a manner that will maximize pleasure and minimize pain. The only instance in which a person will behave in a manner that results in more pain than pleasure is when the knowledge of the effects of the behavior is lacking. Sex is one of the pleasures people pursue. Sex is one of the first levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It is a necessary psychological need like air, warmth, or sleep, and if the body lacks it, will not function optimally. Without the organism that comes with sex, a person will experience pain, and as hedonism would predict, a person will minimize this pain by pursuing sex. That being said, sex as a basic need is different from the need from sexual intimacy, which is located on the third level in Maslow's hierarchy. There are multiple theories for why sex is a strong motivation, and many fall under the theory of evolution. On an evolutionary level, the motivation for sex likely has to do with a species' ability to reproduce. Species that reproduce more survive and pass on their genes. Therefore, species have sexual desire that leads to sexual intercourse as a means to create more offspring. Without this innate motivation, a species may determine that attaining intercourse is too costly in terms of effort, energy, and danger. In addition to sexual desire, the motivation for romantic love runs parallel in having an evolutionary function for the survival of the species. On an emotional level, romantic love satiates a psychological need for belonging. Therefore, this is another hedonistic pursuit of pleasure. From the evolutionary perspective, romantic love creates bonds with the parents of offspring. This bond will make it so that the parents will stay together and take care and protect the offspring until it is independent. By rearing the child together, it increases the chances that the offspring will survive and pass on its genes itself, therefore continuing the survival of the species. Without the romantic love bond, the male will pursue satisfaction of his sexual desire with as many mates as possible, leaving behind the female to rear the offspring by herself. Child rearing with one parent is more difficult and provides less assurance that the offspring survives than with two parents. Romantic love, therefore, solves the commitment problem of parents needing to be together. Individuals that are loyal and faithful to one another will have a mutual survival benefits. Additionally, under the umbrella of evolution is Darwin's term sexual selection. This refers to how the female selects the male for reproduction. The male is motivated to attain sex because of all the aforementioned reasons, but how he attains it can vary based on his qualities. For some females, they are motivated by the will to survive, mostly and will prefer a mate that can physically defend her or physically provide for her among humans. Some females are more attracted to charm, as it is an indicator of being a good loyal lover that will in turn make for a dependable child rearing partner. Although altogether, sex is a hedonistic pleasure seeking behavior that satiates physical and psychological needs and is instinctively guided by principles of evolution. Harsberg's two-factor theory, main article two-factor theory, Frederick Harsberg's two-factor theory concludes that certain factors in the workplace result in job satisfaction motivators, while others, hygiene factors, is if absent lead to dissatisfaction but are not related to satisfaction. The name hygiene factors is used because, like hygiene, the presence will not improve health, but absence can cause health deterioration. Deterioration. The factors that motivate people can change over their lifespan. Some claim motivating factors, satisfiers, were achievement, recognition, work itself, responsibility, advancement, and growth. Some hygiene factors, dissatisfiers, were company policy, supervision, working conditions, interpersonal relations, salary, status, job security, and personal life. Alderfer's ERG theory, main article ERG theory, Alderfer building on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, posited that needs identified by Maslow exist in three groups of core needs: existence, relatedness, and growth. Hence, the label ERG theory, the existence group, is concerned with providing or our basic material existence requirements. They include the items that Maslow considered to be psychological and safety needs. The second group of needs are those of relatedness, the desire we have for maintaining important personal relationships. These social and status desires require interaction with others if they are to be satisfied, and they align with Maslow's social need and the external component of Maslow's esteem classification. Finally, Alderfer isolates growth needs as an intrinsic desire for personal development. All these needs should be fulfilled to greater wholeness as a human being. Self-determination theory, main article self-determination theory. Since the early 1970s, Desai and Ryan have developed and tasted their self-determination theory. SDT identifies three innate needs that, if satisfied, allow optimal function and growth: competence, relatedness, and autonomy. These three psychological needs are suggested to be essential for psychological health and well-being and to motivate behavior. There are three essential elements to the theory. Humans are inherently proactive with their potential and mastering their inner forces such as drive and emotions. Humans have an inherent tendency towards growth, development, and integrated functioning. Optimal development and actions are inherent in humans, but they do not happen automatically. Within self-determination theory, Desai and Ryan distinguish between four different types of extrinsic motivation, differing in their levels of perceived autonomy. External regulation. This is the least autonomous of the four and is determined by external punishment or reward. Introjection regulation. This form of external motivation arises when the individual has somewhat internalized regulations but does not fully accept them as their own. They may comply for self-esteem reasons or social acceptability, essentially internal reasons but externally driven. Identified regulation. This more autonomously driven when the individual consciously perceives the actions as valuable. Integrated regulation. This is the most autonomous form of motivation, and the action has been internalized and is aligned with the individual's values, beliefs, and is perceived as necessary for their well-being. However, this is still classified as extrinsic motivation, as it is still driven by external processes and not by inherent enjoyment for the task itself. 16 Basic Desires Theory. Starting from studies involving more than 6,000 people, Rees posed that 16 basic desires guide nearly all human behavior. In this model, the basic desires that motivate our actions and define our personalities are acceptance, the need for approval; curiosity, the need to learn; eating, the need for food; family, the need to raise children; honor, the need to be loyal to the traditionally values of one's clan, ethnic group; idealism, the need for social justice; independence, the need for individuality; order, the need for organized, stable, predictable environments; physical activity, the need for exercise; power, the need for influence of will; romance, the need for sex and for beauty; saving, the need to collect; social contact, the need for friends, peer relationships; social status, the need for social standing, importance; tranquility, the need to be safe; vengeance, the need to strike back and to compete. Natural theories. The natural system assumes that people have higher order needs, which contrasts with the rational theory that suggests people dislike work and only respond to rewards and punishment. According to McGregor's theory, why human behavior is based on satisfying a hierarchy of needs. Physiological, psychological, safety, social, ego, and self-fulfillment. Psychological needs are the lowest and most important level. These fundamental requirements include food, rest, shelter, and exercise. After psychological needs are satisfied, employees can focus on safety needs, which include protection against danger, threat, deprivation. However, if management makes arbitrary or biased employment decisions, then an employee's safety needs are unfulfilled. The next set of needs is social, which refers to the desire for acceptance, affiliation, reciprocal friendships, and love. As such, the natural system of management assumes that close-knit work teams are productive. Accordingly, if an employee's social needs are unmet, then he will act disobediently. There are two types of egoistic needs. The second highest order of needs, the first type refers to one's self-esteem, which encompasses self-confidence, independence, achievement, competence, and knowledge. The second type of needs deals with reputation, status, recognition, and respect for colleagues. Egoistic needs are much more difficult to satisfy. The higher order of needs is for self-fulfillment, including recognition of one's full potential, areas for self-improvement, and the opportunity for creativity. This differs from the rational system, which assumes that people refer routine and security to creativity, unlike the rational management system, which assumes that humans don't care about these higher order needs. The natural system is based on these needs as a means for motivation. The author of the reductionist motivation model is Sigmund Freud. According to the model, psychological needs raise tension, thereby forcing an individual to seek an outlet by satisfying those needs. Ziegler, Daniel, 1992, Personality Theories, Basic Assumptions, Research, and Applications. Self-management through teamwork. To successfully manage and motivate employees, the natural system posits that being part of a group is necessary because of structural changes in social order. The workplace is more fluid and adaptive, according to Mayo. As a result, individual employees have lost their sense of stability and security, which can be provided by a membership in a group. However, if teams continually change within jobs, then employees feel anxious, empty, and irrational and become harder to work with. The innate desire for lasting human association and management is not related to single workers, but always to working groups. In groups, employees will self-manage and form relevant customs, duties, and traditions. Wage incentives. Humans are motivated by additional factors besides wage incentives. Unlike the rational theory of motivation, people are not driven toward economic interest per the natural system. For instance, the straight piecework system pays employees based on each unit of their output based on studies such as the bank wiring observation room. Using a piece rate incentive system does not lead to higher production. Employees actually set upper limits on one person's daily output. These actions stand in direct opposition to the ideas underlying their system of financial incentive, which countenanced no upper limit to performance other than physical capacity. Therefore, as opposed to the rational system that depends on economic rewards and punishments, The natural system of management assumes that humans are also motivated by non-economic factors. Autonomy, increased motivation for autonomous tasks. Employees seek autonomy and responsibility in their work, contrary to assumptions of the rational theory of management, because supervisors have direct authority over employees. They must ensure that the employees' actions are in line with the standards of efficient conduct. This creates a sense of restriction on the employee, and these constraints are viewed as annoying and seemingly functioned only as subordinating or differentiating mechanisms. Accordingly, the natural management system assumes that employees prefer autonomy and responsibility on the job and dislike arbitrary rules and overwhelming supervision. An individual's motivation to complete a task is increased when this task is autonomous, autonomous, anonymous. When the motivation to complete a task comes from an external pressure, that pressure then undermines a person's motivation and as a result decreases a person's desire to complete the task. Rational motivations. The idea that human beings are rational and human behavior is guided by reason is an old one. However, recent research on satisfying, for example, has significantly undermined the idea of homo economicus or of perfect rationality in favor of a more bounded rationality. The field of behavioral economics is particularly concerned with the limits of rationality in economic agents. Incentive theories, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Motivation can be divided into two different theories known as intrinsic, internal or inherent motivation, and extrinsic, external motivation. Intrinsic motivation, see also Ikigai. Intrinsic motivation has been studied since the early 1970s. Intrinsic motivation is a behavior that is driven by satisfying internal rewards. For example, an athlete may enjoy playing football for the experience rather than for an award. It is an interest or enjoyment in the task itself and exists within the individual rather than relying on external pressures or a desire for consideration. DC 1971 explained that some activities provide their own inherent reward, meaning certain activities are not dependent on external rewards. The phenomenon of intrinsic motivation was first acknowledged within experimental studies of animal behavior. In these studies, it was evident that the organisms would engage in playful and curiosity driven behaviors in the absence of reward. Intrinsic motivation is a natural motivational tendency and is a critical element in cognitive, social, and physical development. The two necessary elements for intrinsic motivation are self-determination and an increase in perceived competence. In short, the cause of the behavior must be internal, known as internal locus of causality, and the individual who engages in the behavior must perceive that the task increases their competence. According to the various research reported by DC's published findings in 1971 and 1972, tangible rewards could actually undermine the intrinsic motivation of college students. However, these studies didn't just affect college students. Kruglanski, Fredman, and Zevi 1971 repeated this study and found that symbolic and material rewards can undermine not just high school students but preschool students as well. Students who are intrinsically motivated are more likely to engage in the task willingly and will as work to improve their skills, which will increase their capabilities. Students are likely to be intrinsically motivated if they attribute their educational results to factors under their own control, also known as autonomy or locus of control. Believe they have the skills to be effective agents in reaching their desired goals, as also known as self-efficiency beliefs, are interested in mastering a topic, not just in achieving good grades. Don't act from pressure, but from interest. An example of intrinsic motivation is when an employee becomes an IT professional because he or she wants to learn about how computer users interact with computer networks. The employee has the intrinsic motivation to gain more knowledge and will continue to want to learn even in the face of failure. Art for art's sake is an example of intrinsic motivation in the domain of art. Traditionally, researchers thought of motivations to use computer systems to be primarily driven by extrinsic purposes. However, many modern systems have their use driven primarily by intrinsic motivations. Examples of such systems used primarily to fulfill user intrinsic motivations include one-line gaming, virtual worlds, online shopping, learning education, online dating, digital music repositories, social networking, online pornography, gamified systems, and general gamification. Even traditional management information systems, e.g., ERP, CRM, are being gamified such that both extrinsic and intrinsic motivations must increasingly be considered. DC's findings didn't come without controversy. Articles stretching over the span of 25 years from the perspective of behavioral theory argue there isn't enough evidence to explain intrinsic motivation And this theory would inhibit scientific progress. As stated above, we now can see technologies such as various forms of computer systems are highly intrinsic. Not only can intrinsic motivation be used to be in a personal setting, but it can also be implemented and utilized in a social environment instead of attaining mature desires such as those presented above via internet, which can be attained on one's own. Intrinsic motivation can be used to assist intrinsic motivation to attain a goal. For example, Eli, a 4-year-old with a autism, wants to achieve the goal of playing with a toy train. To get the toy, he must first communicate to his therapist that he wants it. His desire to play is strong enough to be considered intrinsic motivation because it is a natural feeling, and his desire to communicate with his therapist to get the train can be considered intrinsic motivation because the outside object is a reward. See incentive theory. Communicating with the therapist is the first, slightly more challenging goal that stands in the way of achieving his larger goal of playing with the train. Achieving these goals is attainable pieces is also known as the goal setting theory. The three elements of goal setting STD are specified or are specific, time bound, and difficult. Specifically, goals should be set in the 90th percentile of difficulty. Intrinsic motivation comes from one's desire to achieve or attain a goal. Pursuing challenges and goals come easier and more enjoyable when one is intrinsically motivated to complete a certain objective because the individual is more interested in learning rather than achieving a goal. Edward Desai and Richard Ryan's theory of intrinsic motivation is essentially examining the conditions that elicit and sustain this phenomenon. Desai and Ryan coined the term cognitive evolution theory, which concentrates on the needs of competence and autonomy. The CET essentially states that social contextual events like feedback and reinforcement can cause feelings of acceptance and therefore increase intrinsic motivation. However, feelings of competence will not increase intrinsic motivation if there is no sense of autonomy. In situations where choices, feelings, and opportunities are present, intrinsic motivation is increased because people feel a stronger sense of autonomy. Offering people choices, responding to their feelings, and opportunities for self direction have been reported to enhance intrinsic motivation via increased autonomy. Desai and Ryan, 1985. An advantage relative to extrinsic motivation is that intrinsic motivators can be long lasting, self sustaining, and satisfying. For this reason, efforts in education sometimes attempt to modify intrinsic motivation with the goal of promoting future student learning performance, creativity, and learning via long-term modifications in interests. Intrinsic motivators are suggested to involve increased feelings of reward and thus may support subjective well-being. By contrast, intrinsic motivation has been found to be hard to modify, and attempts to recruit existing intrinsic motivators require a non-trivially difficult individualized approach, identifying and making relevant the different motivators of needed to motivate different students. Possibly